Hello and welcome everybody to the third and final video in our three-part video sequence on the structure of college essays. Our topic here, how to write a conclusion. Now I know a lot of people struggle with conclusions, and I think the reason is that they'll tell me, so I said everything that I wanted to say in the introduction and in the body paragraphs, so when I get to the conclusion, I don't know what to say. I already said it all. And so if that's the case for you, this video discussion is for you. So first off, we're going to start with a brief summary of your main points. And I'm just going to put point or points, okay? This could be all three main points of your essay. This could be a restatement of your thesis. Sometimes when people get to this point in their essay, when they restate the thesis, because they understand the argument so well, having written the body, that they write a better restatement of the thesis than the actual thesis. And if that's the case, then go back to the introduction and just swap them, you know? Always make the thesis the best version. Now, beyond that brief summary of your main points, this is, I think, the portion of the conclusion that a lot of people skip over in the event that they're running out of time, but it's also the part that delivers the heart and soul of a really good conclusion. And so this is something a little extra. I want to give you options. So you could potentially then write about a solution or solutions to the actual issue that you're discussing in the essay. Beyond that, you can set up other implications of what your argument means, okay? If we were to take that and apply it, then what? What does that mean? It could be a call to action. I know that this is a very popular classic choice for a lot of people, that now that you have read this argument, this is what you should do, okay? Other things, I would say you could have a disclaimer. You could, at this point, set up that there are certain cases where the argument doesn't actually work one-to-one. And if that's the case, then you could set up exactly, under what circumstances it might not apply, and then be able to provide analysis along with it. So all of these things, you would still add your analysis. Okay, that is going to be very key. So if you are discussing a couple different solutions to the problem and analysis for each, that easily is going to develop your conclusion. Other implications, research that might be required for the future to solve these issues, things like that, analysis for it, same with a call to action, what people should do, and then also analysis for it. As you could see here, it doesn't have to be just one of them. You could even have a combination of them, but this is what allows you to create a more thoughtful conclusion that has more depth to it, okay? Lastly, we have a closing note. And the closing note is very much similar to the opening note of an entire essay. So that opening hook that we were discussing, closing note is basically the same thing. It's just that you end it in an attention-getting kind of way, right? It's like the very ending of a movie, the very ending of a TV show. What is going to be your mark? Is it going to be a kind of mic drop end? Is it going to be something thoughtful and pensive? Is it going to be a question? The closing note could be a variety of things. It could make people angry. It could make people really sad. It really depends on what the argument is that you're making and the tone you want to end the whole piece with, okay? But you do want to have some strategy here. The closing note, years ago, there was a show I used to watch during daytime television called Jerry Springer. I think he still has reruns. Jerry Springer used to do a final thought, and he would summarize everything that happened on his show. And typically, it was like a circus show of drama, but he would end with a really quiet, pensive idea of, a little universal truth, some kind of philosophical concept for us all to use and consider. And so it can be that, or it could end completely in a different way, get people fired up. Whatever you want to choose for that closing note, it's up to you. But oftentimes people will connect it to that opening hook. So if it was story, the closing note could continue that story or return back to that image or what have you. Okay? That oftentimes just pulls everything together and makes the introduction and conclusion and everything that came in between feel very unified. So we're going to say here that the conclusion really should be 1+ paragraphs in terms of length. And it really depends on this middle portion for what you choose to contribute into the conclusion, okay? I think you could see, though, from this why it's important to pre-write, because if you don't and you're having to draft it out and figure out what this middle part is, it's a lot harder to do that and figure out the perfect words to say what you mean at the same exact time. And if you're drafting it all out in one take, it makes it a lot harder to have that kind of energy, that mental thought, that focus after you've written several pages of body paragraphs and figured out an opening, introduction, and whatnot. All right. So due to the specificity of the way that the whole structure of this essay is supposed to be put together with, right? There's the body, and then there's the intro. If you pre-write to fill in a skeleton of all of this stuff, then you're really saving yourselves time, because you'll have all of this figured out prior to sitting down and drafting. And then all it becomes is, how can I best explain and use the best language and words, grammar and punctuation, to be able to explain the things that I just want to say, right? It'll save you a lot of time. So other concepts and ideas to consider, let me break this down for you. So in the introduction, we tell readers what we're going to tell them. In the body paragraphs, we tell them what we said we were going to tell them. And then in the conclusion, we tell them what we just told them. Is a very simplified way of thinking about the structure of this. For others, maybe this will work. I'm going to steal this. Uh-oh, that's not good. I'm going to steal this from the Writing Center. One of my students shared this with me. I thought this was brilliant. So 2 different triangles. They're both inverted. The top one is representing the introduction. The bottom one is representing the conclusion. And I thought this was really interesting to think about. They're essentially inverted versions of each other. So the opening hook starts that intro, right? Then we get into really this kind of like extra content. Same thing here, this extra content. And notice that triangle just kind of is totally flipped or inverted from what the conclusion needs to be. There's the brief summary and thesis. There's that something extra. There's the closing note that's kind of like the hook. And then your 3 main points that you use as support should all be reasons that are explaining and supporting and defending that thesis. And then they come back into that brief summary as well. So this then becomes a diagram for your overall essay. Something else to consider and think about. Hopefully that helps out. And if you found the video useful, please do give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments section, what you think about this. The pre-writing and idea generation, I think, cannot be stressed as being more important for this kind of essay. And I'm going to close on one final thing. So students say to me, this kind of expository essay, it's really difficult for me to feel like it's mine. It's so formulaic in what it needs to do that how do I make it mine? It doesn't feel very creative at all. Well, it actually isn't very creative. The skeleton is what it is. If you were to break away from it, you'd probably be going into a different genre of writing, like creative nonfiction, creating a narrative. But in terms of creating this kind of argument, this kind of college essay, it does follow this kind of pattern. So the way to make it yours is the topic that you choose to write about, what you have to say about that topic, the word choice, the details, the imagery, the quotes you choose, the way you're breaking it down in analysis. All of that stuff is you and is distinctly you from other people, and it becomes your own fingerprints all over the essay. It's what makes one writer's work different from another's when I'm reading it, or anybody else. So I hope that explanation helped out. Uh, this has been the conclusions for our 3-part video series. I hope that you find it helpful, and I'll see you in the next video, everybody. Bye.